What are the best and worst qualities of every single current UFC champion? Well, we're going to be discussing that video. Obviously, pretty straightforward. Best qualities are things that make them good, things that help them become champ, things that make them great. And then the worst qualities are things that they could improve, things that they aren't really known for, and things that kind of slow down their career progress. Starting off with the heavyweight champ, Jon Jones. He's the greatest fighter of all time. I mean, if you're the greatest of all time, that's got to be a good quality of yours. Like, whether you want to admit it or not, he is the best of all time. I put him in number one in my GOAT list. He's very, very well rounded. He has good striking, effective striking, great grappling, so good submission offense and defense. Like I said, great ground game. He's got really sharp knees and elbows. Some of the sharpest knees and elbows in the entire sport. When he knees people in the liver, when he's elbowing people in the face, and like even those oblique kicks, man. Really good knees and elbows, and he's a very technical fighter. He's not the type of guy to just stand and bang. He's very technical, which is why he's the greatest of all time. Yeah. Only problems, his personal life. He's always getting into controversy and stuff, which is why he's always getting the belt taken away from him. Always having to deal with media, always having to deal with backlash. Not really a likeable guy, so he's always suspended. On top of that, he's also taking PEDs, which definitely knocks off his legacy. The reason most people don't put him as the GOAT is because he has taken PEDs, and obviously that's suspended him and taken a couple of years off his career. His boxing isn't that effective, I've noticed that, and his power in his hands as well. When was the last time Jones knocked someone out or even dropped someone with his hands? He's never really had the best boxing, never really had any technical boxing, never really outstruck people with just his hands, and he's never really had too much power. He kind of just breaks people down round after round. I know we got a head kick over DC, but that was with his legs, plus that was when he was juiced to the gills, so his power in his hands could definitely be improved. I mean, it's a bit too late now, but yeah, he's always had slow boxing, not too much power. Steroids in his personal life have let him down, but greatest of all time, very technical, great ground game, and yeah. Then we move on. Light heavyweight champ. Well, to be fair, the light heavyweight champ is now vacated, but I'm going to say it's still Jamahal Hill. Jamahal Hill's got good power. The way he knocked out Johnny Walker, that was one of the goofiest knockouts. So he's got power in his hands. Definitely able to do damage with his hands. He's very slick with his striking as well. He's got good slick striking. He's one of the most slick strikers at light heavyweight. Him versus Jiri would be a good fight. Him versus Pereira would be a good fight. Very good slick striking is Jamahal Hill. The problem is dedication. Have you seen that video when he's with Marab? How fat did he get after the fight, man? Yeah, his dedication and his out when he's after the fight, it's kind of like Paddy Pimblett. Needs to stay dedicated. The weight cuts are going to get harder for him. Performances are going to be worse for him. He needs to try and stay lean in between fights instead of just getting really fat. I mean, even in this picture, this was like right after his title fight, and he looks fat, man. His grappling could be improved. He had some grappling struggles with Glover Teixeira. He got submitted by Paul Craig. He could definitely work on his grappling a little bit. Like I said, very slick striker, but it wouldn't hurt his career if he had some good grappling. His durability could be improved. He's only just become champion, and he has only just lost it, so I don't expect him to have immediate 5-round durability, but it is something that could be improved. And he's fairly inactive. He fought in January of this year, and we're now in July, or nearly August, and he still hasn't got a fight booked, and he's now vacated, so he's probably not going to fight until next year. He is very inactive, is Jamahal Hill. I wish he was a little bit more active. You've got some champions that are fighting like 3-4 times a year, well, maybe not 4, but 3 times a year. And you've got Jamahal Hill, who's barely scraping 1 fight in a year, so I wish he just fought more often. Then we move on to Israel Adesanya. High-level striker. I'd say he's up there with some of the best strikers in the entirety of UFC. He's known for his striking. He outstrikes pretty much every one of his opponents. The only one he struggled with was Pereira, but he still managed to knock him out. Yeah, outstrikes every single one of his opponents most of the time. He's a very, very technical fighter. Again, not the type of guy to just stand and bang in the middle of the octagon. Very, very technical. And he's got a lot of heart, man. He's not going to give that belt up easy, I've noticed. People, they like to criticise Adesanya, but he doesn't like to give that belt up easy. He will fight for the belt. He's got very slick striking. I won't say his power's up there. He has knocked out Whittaker and Pereira, but I'd say that was more accuracy, rather than just a power puncher. He's not really known for his power. But a lot of heart. Very, very high-class technical striker. He fought in Glory kickboxing. Very good kickboxing record as well. I don't exactly know what it is, but he's got a really good kickboxing record. Problems with him: he has got a lack of ground game and wrestling. You never really see Adesanya wrestling, and it makes you think when he faces a real wrestler like Khamzat Chimaev or Bo Nickel, he's gonna struggle. He's got good takedown defense, but I mean, he was just about out grappling Pereira, so his ground game and wrestling could be improved because he does seem quite one-dimensional as a champion. He's very boring as a defender, man. He is very boring. If you see when he's fighting for the belt, for example, the Gastelum fight or even the second Pereira fight, he looks so much more entertaining. But then when he's defending the belt against people like Vettori and Cannonier, he just goes into this state of boringness. He doesn't take risks. He does the minimum effort and then scrapes a decision win. So I'd say he's way more interesting as someone who's fighting for the belt rather than a defender. And he's quite cringy, innit? I mean, not much people have liked him, especially after this whole Dricus Duplessis situation. He is very cringy. But yeah, Adesanya, if he's a little less cringe, improves his ground game, and maybe takes more risks, he'll be funner. Then we move on to Leon Edwards. Good thing about Leon Edwards is he's got solid striking, man. He's known for his striking. He knocked out Kamaru Usman with it. Solid striker, outstrikes most people at welterweight. Really good clinch work. He was the first man to trip Usman down. Really good in the clinch, good elbows in the clinch, good knees in the clinch, and good obviously tripping with his judo. So his clinch work has impressed me. He's fairly well rounded. People see him kind of like Adesanya, where he's just got the striking. I think he's got wrestling too. If you look at Leon Edwards' fights, he's shown that he's got grappling too. You know, he took down Usman, managed to get up from most of Usman's takedowns, especially in the third fight. Yeah, he's fairly well rounded. Obviously, he's way more of a striker than a grappler, but he's somewhat well rounded. He's not just a one-dimensional fighter. He's got really good cardio. He can last 5 rounds pretty easily. He lasted 5 rounds with Nate Diaz, lasted 5 rounds with Usman twice, so his cardio's good. He's rocky. I'm trying to say he's got heart, man. That Usman fight, when he was losing, he pulled it out last minute. And the final thing, headshot dead. Knocked out Kamaru Usman out cold. That's what built his career. Leon Edwards, solid fighter. The only problem is I've noticed that if you look at his record, he's got a lack of finishes. Besides the head kick knockout, when was the last finish he got? Like, it's mainly just point fighting. He's quite similar to Adesanya. He's quite just point fighting most of the time. Again, I know everyone's going to bring up the head kick. That's the most memorable fight of his career, but that is pretty much his only finish in a while. It would be nice if he had a couple more finishes, and he is quite chinny. He got dropped by Brian Barberena, the guy who's built like a bag of milk. He got, cracked a couple times by Usman. He got rocked by Nate Diaz. I've noticed that he is quite chinny. I'm scared that if someone hits him hard, he could get knocked out. He is a little bit chinny, but again, solid fighter is Leon Edwards. Couple things to improve here and there, but overall solid champ. Then we move on to lightweight, Islam Makhachev. He's got great finishing ability. He's finished pretty much all of his recent fights besides Volkanovski. Finished Oliveira, finished Bobby Green, finished Arman Sarukian, finished Dan Hooker. Good finishing ability, especially with his offensive submissions. He's got great submission offense. He submitted Dan Hooker and Oliveira, so he's got really good submission offense. To submit Oliveira like the way he did, no one's ever done that really before to Oliveira in lightweight, so... He's got some of the best submission offense in the UFC, scary grappling. He's a high level wrestler, Khabib-esque. I'd say he's one of the best, if not the best wrestler in the UFC right now. And obviously wrestling is the most dominant martial art, so he's the highest level wrestler. He's got decent striking. Compared to Khabib and other wrestlers, he's actually got some decent striking. He was able to stand with Alexander Volkanovski. He dropped Charles Oliveira. There were times when he cracked Volkanovski. And those are just some examples. He looks very good on the feet. To say that he's meant to just be this one-dimensional, he's definitely not one-dimensional. He's somewhat well-rounded, and he's got impressive striking. If he strikes with some of these lightweight contenders, I can actually see him dropping him the way he dropped Oliveira. And he's willing to take risks. Unlike people like Khabib, he's actually willing to take risks. He's willing to stand with Volkanovski. He's willing to move up to 170 and fight Leon Edwards. He's not scared. He will take risks. And that's why he's one of the best. The only critique I could possibly think of Islam is his 5-round durability. We've seen him go 5 rounds with Volkanovski, and he did start to slow at the end. I think we need to see him again. I know it's not bad that he's got all these finishes in the first couple of rounds, but if he I'm scared that he's going to gas out quite quickly. I'm not saying he does gas out, but if he had a little bit better durability, maybe improve his cardio, then I think he'll be a really good fighter. The fact that the only thing I could critique him for is his durability means he's a solid fighter. One of the best in the UFC right now. I think he's pound for pound number 3 or 2. But yeah, solid fighter is Makhachev. Then we move on to featherweight. Again, one of the best in the world who just fought Makhachev. Alexander Volkanovski. In my opinion, the most well-rounded champion in the UFC right now. He's got high-level wrestling and high-level striking. He's pretty much unbeatable at featherweight. He's never lost at featherweight, I don't think. He's lost at lightweight, and I think he lost at a different weight class a couple of years ago. But most well-rounded champ. He breaks every fighter. Look at Islam's face after the fight. Look at Yaya Rodriguez's face after the fight. Look at Holloway's face. Brian Ortega's face. The Korean Zombie's face. He breaks every fighter. He never wins. Like, after every opponent's finished fighting him, they always have so much bruises on their face after fighting Volkanovski. He breaks everyone and he puts his all in. He's an S-tier striker. One of the best, if not the best striker in the UFC right now. The way, like I said, the way he just breaks people. No one's really been able to give him problems on the feet. Holloway's meant to be one of the best strikers in the UFC, and Alexander Volkanovski lit him up on the feet. He's a great grappler. Done the best in terms of grappling wise against Islam Makhachev. Destroyed Yaya Rodriguez with his grappling, and he's got a lot of heart, man. When Brian Ortega had him in that guillotine and he could just escape like it was nothing, he's got so much heart, especially even when he was grappling with Islam. He is, in my opinion, the most well-rounded champion. He's pound for pound number 1 in the UFC right now. Only issue with him, he's quite undersized for lightweight. I know he wants to move up and get his lightweight belt. He is quite undersized. How tall is he? Like 5'4", 5'3". So most of the lightweights are bigger than him, which is a problem. So if he was little, I know he can't really change that, but he is very undersized for lightweight. Then we move on to bantamweight. Aljamain Sterling. He's very underrated, is Sterling. Very underrated champ. People don't give him the respect he deserves. He's beaten Henry Cejudo. He's beaten Peter Yan twice. I know the first one wasn't really a win, but he's beaten Yan twice. Beaten Sandhagen. Beaten TJ Dillashaw. Gonna beat O'Malley. Very underrated as a champ. People don't give him the respect he deserves. He's an S-tier grappler and wrestler. He's like the human backpack. You know, when we saw him against Peter Yan and Sandhagen, where he put him to sleep, even TJ Dillashaw, and the fact he was able to defend against Cejudo a lot of the time. He's an S-tier grappler, high level grappler and wrestler. He's got finishing ability. He's got the ability to finish people. Finished Sandhagen, finished Dillashaw. I think he's going to finish O'Malley. So it's not like he's just a point fighter. I know he went to decision with Cejudo and Yan, but he's definitely got finishing ability, and he proves a lot of people wrong. People think he's going to get destroyed, and he ends up winning. Only problem is, he's got quite poor striking. He's got quite weird striking. It's quite unorthodox, but it is poor. If he decides to stand with O'Malley, I'm going to be quite scared for him. So his striking could definitely be improved. He's not that exciting. His fight style isn't really exciting. No one looks at an Aljamain Sterling fight and goes, I can't wait for that. And he's a pussy. Yeah, he's quite scared. The Yan knee thing where he was just giving the belt immediately. Anthony Smith could have done that against Jones. The fact that he kind of just likes laying on people's back isn't really ever willing to strike with top level strikers. Like people like Volkanovski and Makhachev is. So if he was a little bit more willing to take risks, maybe he'd be more exciting, but obviously he should improve his striking before he does that. And finally, Alexandre Pantoja. He's got good power for a flyweight, really good power. He had way more power than Brandon Moreno did. I can see him dropping a lot of people when he goes on his defences. He's got very effective striking. I've noticed that when I watched him versus Moreno, the third fight, Moreno was landing more on the feet, but Pantoja's was doing more to Moreno than it was. So his striking is very effective. He's got solid BJJ. He's submitted Moreno before. He's got a lot of submissions on his name. He's got some of the more solid BJJ. If not, he's got the best Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu at flyweight. And he's got dogging him, man. He's been through wars. Obviously, I'm going to bring up the Moreno fight. Been through wars. You saw that post-fight Octagon interview. He's got heart, man. Issues with him is he could improve his striking technique. If Moreno is a better striker than him. I said he's got effective striking and power, but if he improved the technique slightly on the feet and stopped being so wild all the time, I think he'd have a lot more success on the feet. He kind of just goes out there and swings for the fences. So if he improved the technique and maybe was a little bit more patient, I think he'd be a lot better. But he's a solid champ. I think he beats Moreno again in the future, but Actually, I don't know. I think Moreno could actually beat him. But I think he's always going to be a top flyweight. But yeah, that is my list of the pros and the cons of every UFC champion. Please let me know if you've got any other suggestions, and let me know if you agree.